following you around, checking to see if you're in a class because of the fact that they're very jealous. That's a red flag. Uh, Also, seems to, that this person is too good to be true. Now, this one is a really, really good one because many times abusers know that they are abusers, and so they do things to overcompensate for that, to cover it up. And so they're extra, nice, and they woo you. And many times they're almost too good to be true. So, look out for that as well. I was listening to a program once, and there was a guy on there. He called in, and it was a Christian program, and the subject was abuse. And he said that he was an abuser, and he lost 2 marriages because of it. And one of the things that he said, women should be careful what they pray for. He said, because you just might get it. He said that when he would meet a young lady, and he knew what he was going to do because he was an abuser. And he said he would be everything to that woman. He would satisfy her every need, emotional, physical, everything. Because the point was to get her so emotionally attached to him that when the abuse started, she's less likely to leave. So it's very calculating. And one of the things I want to point out about abuse is that, it's really, really not about the violence. It's really about dominance. And so you have, and it's, this small group of men who they have a need to dominate their partner at all cost. And many times they use violence, particularly, with women, because they know that many times they're twice her size. And so they use that. A person who easily gets upset easily. Most of us are pretty, calm, low-key. It's got to take something really, over the top to get us upset. But if you're dealing with a person and they're upset, they get upset at something, you're sitting thinking like, well, why would that upset you? That's a red flag. This is a person that would just go off at the simplest and the smallest things. And then, of course, another is a history of violence. If a person has a history of violence, that's a red flag, because that means that that's kind of in him, and he is not very good at managing his anger. And then, of course, definitely if he's a controlling person and he has a need to dominate. And that's not a good thing to be in a relationship with anyone who has a need to dominate you.
Right, absolutely. Look, I want to go back and talk about teenage abuse.
Okay.
I was just really appalled that teenage girls would allow somebody to abuse them. I mean, most girls, you would never think of them doing that.
Yes.
But this has become a big issue now.
Yes.
What are some of the traits that a teenager should look for, and what about the parents? Because kids are not going to tell you everything.
Yes.
They may tell another friend, but they're not going to tell mom or dad.
Right. And that's the unfortunate thing about teenagers, about children, period. Many times they don't tell their parents, even if it's in a situation of abuse, sexual abuse or whatever. Many times the parents are the last to know. And one of the reasons why, teenagers, they know that their parents look up to them and just think that the world just, evolves around them, and have all these wonderful feelings towards their teenagers, their children. And so when a woman is in a situation where she is being violated physically and emotionally and all these other ways, then what she tends to do is to see herself as a victim.
Yeah.
And when she sees herself as a victim, then she sees herself as in a lower state. So she looks down on herself. Has all these bad feelings about herself. And so she fears, if I tell my mom is going to see me the way I see myself. So she doesn't want to do that. And so she'll hide it. And many times with our teens, our young women, the reason why they allow themselves to stay in these situations is because it's all about, that's that age where she wants to be loved by members of the opposite sex. It's all about it. We remember when we were young, when we were 15 or 16 years old, we wanted a boyfriend. We wanted this special person who thought we were cute, and all that kind of goes along with that. And so depending on the young lady and how popular she is with the boys, she may not get that attention a lot. And so when it does come along, then what she does is that if he is physical with her, then what she is caught up in is that I have this person who spends time with me. I have this person who is loving when he's not being abusive, because that's the cycle. He's abusive, and then he goes from that to being sorry, and then he goes from that to being the honeymoon stage, and then he's, giving her gifts and all these things. And so what she focuses on is what it feels like during the good times. And then what she decides to do is to settle for this because she gets that.
Yes. Yes.
And so, and that's the reason why we need people to go on our college campuses, go into the schools and talk to our young ladies, and to build up their sense of self, and let them know and help them to understand that this is a facade. What you're getting over here, what you think is a good thing, it's really a facade. It's really not real. And that this is not the only person, let's say the only fish in the sea.
Yes.
That just like you attracted him, that means you already lovely. He came along, and there's always others out there who are better. So we need to encourage them in that way. So.
And like I said, going back to high school, most people are surprised when you say that. But if a young lady is in a situation where she's been abused, she needs to tell her parents, number one,
yes.
tell the counselor, and she needs to transfer out of that school.
Absolutely.
She needs to be removed from that situation.
Absolutely.
But tell an adult, somebody who's going to do something to help you. Now, I know you go around to these different shelters and you talk to battered women.
Yes.
How can a woman in a violent situation avoid the feeling of shame? Because like you said, I can imagine your self-esteem is very low, and I think that's the whole purpose. And these people try to isolate you from your family and your friends. That should also be a red flag.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
But how can you avoid this feeling of shame?
Well, to avoid the shame, one of the greatest things that you can do is to not be a victim. And I can't stress that enough. Now, you have women who, in our viewing audience, who are already in abusive relationships. They're in abusive marriages with all the trappings, meaning that they have small children and that they feel that they can't get out. They don't have that support system economically. They're not able to take care of themselves or their children if they were to leave. But to understand that even if you're in that situation and you as a woman don't feel that it's something that's for you to leave right now, because there are women listening right now who are not going to leave after this program is over. So, but what I can say to a woman in that situation is that you don't want to be a victim, because a victim is a woman with no power. And I want a woman listening right now to understand that you do have power. You always had the power. And I hear sometimes when women say, I can't believe that I allowed my husband to take my power. But I always say, no one can take your power. You give it away.
Well, let me ask you this question.
Yes.
So how can these women regain that power? How can they regain that? That's what you mean.
Yes, I want to. You can regain your power by simply doing something now, being proactive. Don't sit back and do nothing. It's just like if you remember how it was when you were in school and you saw people in the play yard. Sometimes a fight would break out on the playground. And you can remember when you would see someone in a fight and they were just there being beat on and kicked and punched, but they didn't fight back. They didn't do anything. And then you see another person who's on the ground, maybe shorter than the person that's beating them, but that person is fighting, as they say, fighting like the Dickens. And so, and this is a person, they may have gotten beat up, the nose is bloody, black eye, but they don't feel like a victim, and nobody else sees them as one. So what am I saying? I'm not saying go and physically fight with your abuser, but what I am saying is that don't sit and do nothing. Be proactive. There are things that you can do. Get a plan.